Shalom, shalom, Mishpaka. How you guys doing? This is your Yao checking in. I just wanted to really quickly say a couple words on the state of America. We do know now that America is under attack in a very strange way. We can see that these attacks in Texas are planned attacks. And I think I had a video that I wanted to get into, or I started to get into this with my last video, but I didn't get a chance to further develop it. So what you're looking at when you're looking at these attacks, and that's what they are, they're terrorist attacks. They're not lone wolf gunmen that go into a mall and shoot 8 people, or not, a lone driver that, runs over 8 people, 7 people and kills them all. So the two events in Texas are what I'm discussing. And yeah, what you can see is the person driving over these people and then the person going into the mall and shooting people up. But what you don't see are what motivated these people to do this, right? And in every situation, in every circumstance, when you look at these mass shootings, it's the government. It's some element of the CIA, the FBI, the DEA, or one of these 3-letter agencies that are putting a battery in people's back to go out and commit these crimes, right? A lot of times giving them the funds and the training, and then sometimes even programming them to do these things, right? And we already know about the history of the MK Ultra program. It's a hypnotic warfare type of deal where a person is hypnotized into going and doing a certain thing. You may not even, be aware of what it is he's actually doing. You don't have to hypnotize somebody to go out and, commit this heinous act. You hypnotize him into believing he's doing something else, but in reality, he's committing a heinous act, right? And we know that's how they do. There's all sorts of little games that they play. And the reason why we know this, and here's, which may be really, really crazy to some people, but it makes a lot of sense. Here's how we know that this is one of the things that they do, because we saw it on a movie, on a TV show, Columbo. There was a hypnotist episode on one episode of Columbo where the hypnotist is killing people or hypnotizing people into killing themselves, right? And this is where they kind of give away the method here. This is what you have to look for in society, is when they give away the method. Because, murderers, killers, they can't help but to brag about what they do. So they'll put their method into modern media. And then when we consume this modern media, we'll pick up on it. Those of us with, an eye to see will pick up on, hey, they just told us the method. Okay, so here's the method. In this Columbo episode, there's one of the victims that this man has hypnotized. What he did was he hypnotized this person by taking them back to a place from their childhood, right? He put this person in a deep hypnotic trance, right? Into a deep subconscious state where that everything that is suggested to them is accepted because he's speaking directly to the subconscious. It's how this, this wicked brain technology works. This mind control technology works off of your suggestible subconscious, that once you're in a subconscious state of mind, that everything that is said to you in an authoritative tone, will be taken as fact, right? And so what the hypnotist did was put this woman in that deep hypnotic state and then began to suggest to her that she's now at her father's summer house in such and such state. I can't remember the exact location, but he suggested to her that she is now not in her apartment, but she is now at her summer house, her father's summer house, and she's getting ready to jump into the pool. And the pool is something that she's always loved ever since she was a little kid. She's getting undressed into her bathing suit to jump into the pool, and she's getting ready to dive into the pool. This is what the hypnotist has suggested to her, right? And then he stops, right? He stops short of her actually jumping into the pool. And so what he does later is he sets this tone, this he sets it, and here's where the technology gets a little bit strange. So you can recall this hypnotic state, this hypnotic trance, by, if you do the research, all of this is available. It's like Pavlov's dog, where you ring the bell and the dog starts salivating because it knows it's getting ready to get a treat every time that bell rings. So even without the treat, the bell has associated itself with the treat in the dog's mind. So the dog reacts, physically. There's a physical reaction to not the food, but the bell that's associated with the food. This is the way the mind works, that you can assign a task to a tone or sound. And so that's what this particular, hypnotherapist was doing, is every time that this particular woman heard a phone call, that it would take her back, or heard the phone ringing, it would take her back to her summer house at the pool where she's getting ready to dive in. And so the hypnotist calls her, and he's way far away. He says a few words to her, and she's she's a little kid, and she's at her dad's summer house, and she's getting ready to jump into the pool, right? Except she's not. She's actually in her apartment on the 10th floor. And what she does is she actually goes out into the balcony, stands up on the balcony, takes her clothes off like she's getting ready to, like she has a bathing suit on, doesn't have a bathing suit on, and then jumps from the 10th floor as if she's jumping into a pool. Do you see how the hypnotic warfare works? That you can trick somebody into doing something that they wouldn't normally do in their subconscious. Do you see that they've given away by this Columbo episode the method to their madness, right? That you don't have to convince, because, this is what psychologists always say. And when I was actually in a psychology class, this is what the professor, who turned out to be a real bad guy, the professor told me straight up, you can't hypnotize someone or convince somebody to do something that they wouldn't normally do in their real life. You can't program somebody into doing something that is against their conscience, right? Well, I believe that to be true in a lot of cases, not in every case, but in a lot of cases. But there's a way around that they don't tell you about, is to convince them that they're doing something for good, or if they're doing something that is not what it is that it appears to be. So if you trick a woman into thinking she's jumping into her pool at her dad's summer house, but she's actually, on the 10th floor of an apartment building, then now you've actually tricked that woman into committing suicide, right? And you've killed her because you've used the hypnotic programming to trick her into jumping off of a cliff. And Columbo figures this out because he sees that when she took her clothes off, she folded them neatly and put them to the side, took her watch off as if she's getting ready to get into the pool, right? Because you're going through your logical method, but you're just not seeing in the way that things actually are, right? You're seeing what you've been suggested to see, right? And so she takes her watch off, she takes her ring, all her jewelry off, places it neatly in her pocket, folds her clothes up as if she's going for a swim, right? And Columbo, being keen on these weird facts, figures this out, right? Wait a second, this guy may have hypnotized her into doing something that she didn't want to do, right? And so if we look at this as a method, you can see that if people are programmed into thinking they're somewhere else or doing something else, they can be really programmed into doing anything, right? And then once you replay the tone that brings you into that subconscious state, when you come out of it, you don't even remember what happened in that subconscious state at all. You don't remember it. And this is a technology that they use and utilize in several different ways. They actually use it a lot in sports. They use mind control technology in sports to make people be able to shoot that 3-point the same way every time. They use electroshock therapy. Think they don't? Look up Tiger Woods. Look up who Tiger Woods' father was. Tiger Woods' father worked for the military in the army in a top secret mind control unit. A top secret mind control unit. Remember that Tiger Woods' father trained Tiger Woods to play golf, when he was a little kid. And so they trained him using mind control to make these same swings exactly the same way every time. They put him in a trance and have them do the motions so that the motion will be done perfect. You look up Tiger Woods and see what he says about his swing, right? He will tell you that when he gets ready to play golf, when he gets ready to go up for a swing, he doesn't remember. He doesn't remember what it is that he did. He says that he blacks out. I saw the documentary years ago. And Tiger Woods is a mind-controlled athlete. That's why he was so successful, because this mind control technology actually works. And you can use it in a variety of different ways. You can use it to be successful at sports. You can use it to, deliver messages that, only the person who knows the code word would be able to unlock from your subconscious mind, like send you into the trance with the code word and then deliver the message from that trance and then take you out of the trance with another code word. It can be used to make sex slaves. It can be used to murder people. You see what I'm saying? Can you imagine the implications of this type of technology and what you could get away with in society? What you could do and who you could attack and, what that would look like? That it would be completely invisible to the person that doesn't know that this technology exists, or who has heard of this technology but just doesn't believe in it, right? Because there's millions of instances, I say millions, but thousands of instances in media and TV and movies where they show you that this is the technology that they use. They show it to you just plain and simple. But people believe it to be movie and fantasy and don't take into consideration that it's real. The movie, The Manchurian Candidate, is this mind control technology. It's exactly that. The Manchurian Candidate. That came out in 1954. I believe it was 1954 when the movie came out. But if you can imagine this technology being around for 75 years, it's 54, 23, 80 years, right? 80 years. 80 years of mind control technology, and we don't believe it exists. Can you imagine having a technology for 100 years and you don't even know it exists? Right? That your country has ownership to a wildly successful technology, and they didn't even tell you. Or they told you, but they kept it secret enough to where that you don't believe it. They used the technology to keep you from knowing the technology. Do you see what I'm saying? So I've gotten distracted, but what I was going to initially say is that these attacks that you're seeing are coordinated government attacks. These are not random things that they're reporting here. These are attacks. These are terrorist attacks by your government, and they're using spies and secret agents. And you don't even really know what a spy and a secret agent is, but that's what they're using against you. And they're all these, drone-style mind control victims and murderers themselves, right? That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing, and they're doing it against you. And if you look and see that each one of these events comes with its own backstory, storyline, and what it can be used for going forward, right? If you look at the two events that happened this past weekend in Texas, they were both done on preceding days, by Mexican Americans, right? That were associated with gangs, right? Right? Now, what's the odds of a mass killing by Mexican immigrants, or at least Mexican, lineage immigrants, people from a Mexican heritage? What's the odds that over 5 people will be killed by each of these individuals in preceding days? It should tell you that it's an operation, because the immigrant or the foreigner, being responsible for crime and murder is a Republican talking point. You see what I'm saying? That's the Republican talking point, right? So you go and look at the Nashville shooter, the trans shooter. That's a transgender and came and attacked a church because the school is a church. So she attacked the church. Christians under fire and by a transgender person, right? A crazy person, right? And so again, that has narrative written all over it. And that's the Democratic narrative that, hey, these trans people are marginalized, and particularly marginalized by the church because the church condemns trans people, and the Bible condemns trans people. Therefore, this is a talking point. The trans shooter is a whole talking point for the Democrats, right? That's how you see what's going on, because these events are being used as political footballs to be able to just, hey, this trans person was a victim too, because that's what they're saying. They're saying that the trans killer was actually a victim. You see what I mean? So it's a talking point for the Democrats, saying that these two people from Mexico, these two people with Mexican heritage, right, who shouldn't be here to be killing people. It's a Republican talking point, right? So that's how you figure out really who's responsible for these particular operations, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, because who's using them, right? Who's using them the most, right? And then the ultimate narrative is obviously to get rid of guns in America, which is going to take a whole lot. So they'll go incrementally. They'll take assault rifles first, and then they'll send around the people that are using handguns, and then meanwhile, you've got all sorts of stuff in the neighborhood, in the hood, going on that people just completely look over, right? But all the same stuff is going on there, except they use different means of mind control. Gangs. They use gangs in the city to mind control people, right? And they've already got that mind control technology worked out too. And so what it also does, what this particular technology also does, is it sets the stage for you to, be induced into a state where you can be suggested anything. But you can get to that state without, the mind control drug, without being kidnapped and tortured. You can get there just from having a hard life, right? And people in the city, people in the city have it hard sometimes. And so what another aspect of this mind control technology is called doctrine writing. And I'm running long here too, but I just wanted to get this out, and I haven't done a video in a while, so I want to make sure that I get this video on here for you guys. But it's called doctrine writing. A few years ago, when I was looking into Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the origins of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, I ran across a weird website that is now called SIS, right? SIS. But when I was looking at it, and this has been 5 years ago, 5 or more years ago, it was called ISIS. And it was a military government site that you really had to pass a certificate to get into. Like, you had to announce you're entering into the site. Anybody could get in, but it certificated you, if you understand what I mean. You had to click a button that says you have to have a certificate to enter into the site. So you click it, and then it allows you to pass, right? So a government website, a .gov, this is isis.gov, right? And so you go through this site, and it's a website that's dedicated to this special forces group called ISIS. And if you look at some of their abilities, right, and some of their theaters, there was all of these categories that you could go down. And so you look at theaters, and the theaters were Afghanistan, Iraq, the Middle East. So wait a second, you've got this government website called ISIS that operates in the Middle East. What are they doing, right? And so you go into their capabilities. Like, they've got all of these categories, and one of them was capabilities, right? You go into that category, And it gives you all the things that they were able to do as a special forces unit. And one of those was role playing. Role playing. The other one was doctrine writing. Doctrine writing. So there were several, right? But the two that stood out to me the most, and I need to probably go back and look at it because I haven't looked at it in a very long time since I've done this research. But one of them was doctrine writing, and then the other one was role playing. That stood out to me, right? And so the reason why those two stood out is because role playing as a special forces unit in Afghanistan and Iraq means that you can only be role playing as Iraqi terrorists, as ISIS, right? The website is called ISIS. It's got a .gov handle, and one of the functions of the Special Forces Group that's called ISIS is role playing. And then you just so happen to have at the same time a terrorist organization in the Middle East, which was called ISIS. And so if you understand that these particular people were pretending to be ISIS soldiers in a lot of situations and killing people and committing these acts of atrocities, then you can kind of understand what role that the United States is playing. But beyond that, what I was really talking about, because this is in references to gangs in the city, is doctrine writing. So what is doctrine writing? And so you have to really understand that doctrine writing is the ability to set forth a whole group of ideas that suited together become a worldview. Become a worldview that you internalize as a religious structure. That's doctrine writing. That ISIS and the ability to join ISIS as a terrorist squad, the actual and not the role playing, is possibly written, by a person that said, this is ISIS, these are our belief structures, this is what we believe. We're Muslim, we follow this particular style of Muslim doctrine, we have this objective, that objective. Doctrine writers, right, who are able to preach that doctrine and then instill it into a certain group of people. That's what ISIS was doing, ISIS.gov. Doctrine writing. That's what their specialty, one of their capabilities, doctrine writing. So take that concept and apply it to America, because clearly enemies, foreign and domestic enemies would be, the Hebrew slaves that you have enslaved for the 400 years that we've been here and are attempting to keep us enslaved for however long so that you can, exploit us and then eventually exterminate. That's what it is, just putting that out there. That's what it is. So who's your number one enemy, right? Your number one enemy in the United States would be, number one male, black male, Hebrew male. That's the number one enemy. We know that. So all of this warfare psychology would be directed at them too, at us too, right? And so in the city, you have whole religious doctrines associated with gangs. You have the gangster disciples. Gangster disciples, right? Disciple, that's a religious term that comes directly from the Bible. You have to have a doctrine to be a disciple, right? And so gangster disciples have laws, they have codes, they have phrases and sayings, they pray, they fast. Did you guys know that gangster disciples pray and fast? Right? They do. They have a whole religious doctrine, a whole style of behavior, right? Same thing for the black disciples, same thing for the Bloods, same thing for the Crips, same thing for the Five Percenters. All of these different gangs and ideas, come from somewhere. And look at the things that they use. You got the Bloods and the Crips both using 5-point stars, 6-point stars, devil forks going up, devil forks going down. These are satanic doctrines that are implemented in the city. This is style of mind control that they're using in the city, where they don't have to torture you. You've already been tortured being in the city, Now all they got to do is just feed you a doctrine that you can get with, that other people believe. And you see what it does to the community. It destroys it. They don't even have to be one of these regular gangs. It could just be one of your 3-letter gangs. PG, PF, PFC, da-da-da-da-da, right? Isn't that what they're doing now? They're putting the 3-letter names on themselves, like CIA, DEA, FBI. Aren't they doing that now to themselves? FBG, right? And I'm not meaning to focus on any particular gang here. They're all bad. They're all cults. They're all doctrines of devils. That's what they are, right? And that's how the mind control works, that you can have a doctrine that is airtight enough for you to fall in it and never come back out. And it just cycle around into where that doctrine is your life, right? You don't think that could happen? You don't think that that's what they're out there doing? That these, people like Jeff Ford and Larry Hoover and all these, what was the dude, Pookie from LA that started the Crips and whoever else, these aren't assets, these aren't government assets that disseminate the information into the community? Believe it, y'all, because that's what we're dealing with. You're looking at mind control on several different levels. The ability to do it based on doctrine writing, and the ability to do it based on torture and technology, right? And that's what America is, because coming through your boob tube every day, every night, is a milder version of the same thing. That hypnotic spell that the TV puts on you, that you're looking at a program. Like, watch your kids when they look at TV, they're like this, right? So that means they're being put into a suggestive state. They're being put into a hypnotic spell, just not at the level that that some people can be put into, not as deep, but still a trance, nevertheless, right? You just got to understand that that's what you're dealing with, and all of this comes from America. This is American technology, right? This is America at work. Scripture says that Babylon in the end of the world will be deceiving the whole world, especially the Hebrews, right? Just putting out sorcery that is propagandizing and deceiving the whole world. It's in Revelation 18, right there at the end. I think it's 20 or 21. But that's what we see. We see that for a fact. We see it all around us, and it is pervasive. And nobody knows it's there, but it's the most powerful technology that we've ever seen, that the world's ever seen, and it's completely hidden, right? Understand this, and then take a look at what you're looking at, and then interpret these mass murders and shootings, and then interpret the condition of your people and the future of your people. Take all of these facts into consideration, and then figure out what you need to do, right? Okay, guys. Shalom, shalom.